We like to think of ourselves as rational beings, making choices based on facts and logic. But the truth is, our minds are often swayed by hidden biases that operate beneath our conscious awareness. These mental shortcuts can affect everything from the way we shop to the way we perceive other people. Here are 10 shocking biases you probably didn't realize were shaping your decisions, along with practical exercises to address them. 1. Anchoring bias. This bias occurs when we rely too heavily on the first piece of information we receive, the anchor, to make decisions. For example, if you see a jacket priced at $200 marked down to $100, you're more likely to think it's a great deal, even if $100 is still pricey. Exercise. The next time you're shopping, compare multiple options before making a decision. For instance, instead of focusing on the initial price of an item, write down at least 3 other similar products and their prices. This will help you avoid being influenced solely by the first number you see. 2. Confirmation bias. We tend to seek out information that supports our existing beliefs and ignore evidence that contradicts them. This bias can impact everything from the news we consume to the way we form opinions about people and events. Exercise. Pick a belief you hold strongly, like your opinion on a controversial topic. Spend 10 minutes researching opposing viewpoints, making a list of their strongest arguments. Reflect on whether these points change or challenge your perspective. 3. Availability heuristic. Our brains prioritize information that is readily available or memorable, which can lead to distorted judgments. For instance, after hearing about a plane crash, you might overestimate the risks of flying, even though it's statistically one of the safest modes of travel. Exercise. When you catch yourself overestimating the likelihood of a rare event, like a plane crash, look up the actual statistics. Write down how often the event happens versus your perceived likelihood. This can help you recalibrate your risk assessment. The halo effect is a cognitive bias where our overall impression of a person influences our judgments about their specific traits. For example, if someone is attractive, we might assume they are also kind or intelligent. Now, here's an exercise for you. The next time you meet someone, write down 5 specific traits you notice about them, separating physical appearance from behaviors or actions. Then, reflect on whether your impression of one trait, like appearance, influences your evaluation of others, such as competence. Loss aversion is the idea that people are more motivated to avoid losses than to achieve equivalent gains. This can lead to overly cautious decisions, such as sticking with a bad investment because the thought of losing money feels worse than the potential benefits of starting fresh. Let's try an exercise. List 5 recent decisions you made to avoid loss, for example, not switching insurance plans or holding on to an unused subscription. Evaluate whether these decisions were based on fear of losing something or on actual long-term benefits. The sunk cost fallacy is when we've invested time, money, or effort into something, making us more likely to stick with it, even if it's no longer serving us. For instance, staying in a bad relationship because of the time you've already spent together. Here's an exercise to consider. Think of one area where you've been sticking it out despite diminishing returns like a job, project, or investment. Imagine starting fresh. What would you do differently if you weren't already invested? Write down the pros and cons of continuing versus letting go. The way information is presented can heavily influence our decisions. For instance, people are more likely to choose a yogurt labeled 90% fat-free than one labeled 10% fat, even though they mean the exact same thing. Exercise. Take a decision you're about to make and reframe it in 2 different ways. For instance, if you're deciding between 2 products, write their descriptions, emphasizing both the positives and the negatives. Notice how the phrasing affects your choice. The bandwagon effect, it's something we all experience. We're often influenced by what others are doing. If a product or idea seems popular, we're more likely to adopt it ourselves, even if it's not the best choice for us. Here's an exercise. Reflect on a recent trend you followed, like buying a popular product or joining a fad. Write down why you made that choice. Then ask yourself, would you still make the same decision if no one else was doing it? Overconfidence bias is another common pitfall. Many of us tend to overestimate our abilities and knowledge, which can lead to risky decisions or ignoring advice from experts. This bias can show up in everything from financial decisions to health choices. So, here's an exercise. Before tackling a task you feel highly confident about, like assembling furniture or preparing for a meeting, write down 3 potential challenges you might face and how you'd handle them. This will help you plan more realistically. Then there's recency bias. Our brains give more weight to recent events than past ones, which can skew our perception of patterns or risks. For example, if you've recently experienced a positive outcome, you might believe it's more likely to happen again, even if it's statistically rare. Here's an exercise. If a recent event is influencing your decision-making, like investing based on recent market trends, step back and review longer-term data or patterns. Create a timeline to visualize how past events compare to recent occurrences. Understanding these biases is the first step to making more mindful and balanced decisions. While it's impossible to eliminate them entirely, being aware of how they work can help you recognize when they're at play and take steps to counteract their influence. Try the exercises above to see how they can improve your decision-making. What biases have you noticed in your own life? Share your thoughts below.